Welcome to the Wasting Time podcast. We're here at the last episode of 2021. I'm one of your hosts, Chris. I'm here with Nick. How's it going, man?
Good. 2021. What a fucking shit year that's been overall.
Yeah. It's been...
But lots of podcast episodes. How many have we done this year? Do you know?
I couldn't tell you exactly. I think we've more or less done. I think we've probably done about 12 because I think we've done pretty much one every month, or maybe two in a couple, maybe like 12, 13, 14, something like that.
Is that less or more aggressive than last year? I feel like last year we were kind of really thick in like pandemic lockdown, and we were fortunate to get loads
them out. It's a good question, man.
What did you just say? Whapping them out?
Whacking them out.
All right. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, whack, that would have been a weird phrase. I think maybe we've done slightly less this year. I feel like when we're at our quietest, we always try and at least get one out a month. I feel like we've done that at least. There hasn't been a month where we haven't released one, so that's something.
Well, we've been fortunate to be able to actually go out and do things as well.
Yeah, that's true. It's been a little busier.
Indoors.
Yeah.
Managed to go to some gigs as well, which we've obviously talked about.
Yeah, we talked about last time, didn't we? I think. Go on.
I was just going to say, you've been to a couple recently, haven't you? Since last time
I think.
recorded?
Well, last time when we did the Youth Fountain episode, we talked about the ones I went to in November. I went to one last week though, which again, Lovebreakers. Our audience probably fed up with us talking about Lovebreakers, but fuck it, we don't care. We love them. They came down to London because they were playing with Kali Masi, actually, who we had on this podcast earlier this year. So it was really cool to see them. Shout out to Kali Masi, and it was nice to meet them in person. Really cool guys, great band, and I hope they're doing well because they were hit. I mean, it was one of those things where it is what it is. But they were about to do another leg of the tour in Europe. But because of COVID, they were flying home to Chicago the next day and had to cut that short, which was probably a bit of a bummer for them, to say the least. Yeah,
I guess we'll see how it affects kind of touring, kind of travelling bands, I guess, really, coming over. Is it going to... We've definitely spoken to people who, from overseas, especially from the US, have been reluctant to book anything in Europe. And kind of vice versa, haven't we?
Yeah. I'm just really hoping, obviously... At the time of recording, numbers are going up and stuff. I just hope these tours sort of in early 2022 and in the spring aren't affected too much, but we'll just have to wait and see what happens with that. But before we move on from this gig that I went to last week, I just want to say, obviously, Lovebreakers were amazing as always.
Of course.
But a little shout out, so basically there were a lot of people that I know a little bit from the kind of London scene that were there, all the guys from Apologies, I Have None, were there, and I just want to give a shout out to James from Apologies, he's been on this show before, but we've mentioned him on a couple of episodes. I think the guy from the Menzingers talked about him, and Kali Masi talked about him. So I saw him, and I was just I was with my wife, and I introduced him to her, and I said, I hadn't seen him for ages. I was like, how's it going? Blah, blah, blah. And I said, I'm still doing the podcast. And he's like, yeah, I know. I'm a listener. I like it. He goes, it's still really good. Bit too much Good Charlotte talk for my liking, but apart from that, it's really good. And to that, Parisha says, we had Good Charlotte cutouts at our wedding. And just as he was just like, what? And just as he was saying that, Kali Masi started their set, so obviously it was really loud, so we had to cut the conversation short. And I didn't get a chance to speak to him again for the rest of the night. And then when I got home later that night, he just messaged me out of nowhere, just saying, Good Charlotte cutouts, for real.
Did you send him photographic evidence?
Of course I did. Yeah. So yeah, just a little shout out to James. It was good to see you, as well as it was other people from your band and a few other people from the scene who I hadn't seen for ages. So it was really nice to be at that show at the New Cross Inn last week.
Bringing people together again, eh?
Yeah. So that was really cool. Have you been to any shows since we spoke?
I haven't. No, I don't think so.
No, you were at a show. The interview we're coming to in a minute. You weren't around for because you were at a show that night, weren't you? What were you going to see? Some hip hop and.
Oh yes.
What was it again?
Oh yes.
Go on.
Abstract Orchestra does MF Doom.
That was it. How was that?
Yeah, it was good. It's good. It's like a 16-piece orchestra that recreate the music of MF Doom, who you clearly know nothing about.
I'm not overly familiar with
yeah,
MF
he's
Doom,
very,
to be honest.
very well-known hip-hop artist. Yeah, it was good. Yeah, it was good to get out. And
yeah.
It was in Wylam Brewery, which is like an old armories building that's been turned into a kind of brewery tap. But yeah, it's nice. It's a good venue. It's got big domed roofs, so the sound's really, really good, and the beer's good. So yeah, well remembered. Awesome. Better remembered than myself, who actually attended that gig.
Yeah.
But other than that, no.
What about new music that's come out? And also, I just realised a year ago today we did the recording of our Christmas 2020 episode when we went through some of our favourite Christmas music, and some of our former guests gave us little contributions to some of their favourite Christmas music, and that was a lot of fun. It was one of my favourite episodes last year. But it's been a couple of new releases in the sort of vein of the music that we cover on this show. Anything that you've listened to that you've liked?
Christmas specific, or just...
I guess I was steering in that direction, but it doesn't have to be.
Obviously, Newfound Glory released their record. I've listened to a little bit of that, not a great deal.
What did you think of that?
I'm sure you've probably got more insight on that record as a whole.
Yeah, I've got some thoughts on it, definitely.
Go on then, let's hear them.
Yeah, I mean, I generally enjoy Newfound Glory's holiday songs. I mean, obviously, one of them was my first dance at my wedding, so, definitely a fan of it for the most part. Because they did the Christmas special last Christmas, and we talked to Cyrus about it when he was on our podcast. And I did ask, are you releasing these songs like on record and streaming services this Christmas? And he was a bit
coy about it.
Yeah, but it was obvious. He made it obvious they were going to, and they have. And it's got some duds on it, I think, but it does have a lot of decent songs. Obviously, it's got a full band version of Nothing for Christmas. That's fun. I really like the song Holiday Records, although my wife kind of ruined that for me because I was playing it and she was like, it sounds like it's from a children's show or something. It's like a Nickelodeon theme or something, which I kind of see what she means, but I still enjoy it. They've done like an acoustic version or an updated version of It Never Snows in Florida from their first album. That's quite cool, but so it's kind of some of it works, some of it doesn't. MXPX had a new Christmas song, which
I haven't heard that actually.
It's good. It's good. They tend to do one every year, so like they're of varying quality. But this is one of my favourite ones of recent times. Proper catchy. I think you'd like that. Listen to that when we're done with this. Well, I mean, as you were saying before we recorded this, I think we might look at like some of our overall favourite releases of 2021 when we've had a bit more time to kind of sit down and do them. So in the same way we did this year, we'll do it in January at the start of the year and kind of look back. But is there any other releases that have come out that you've enjoyed, like non-Christmas related?
I guess I was listening to the new Frank Turner single, Miranda, which is a really interesting song, just based on the story, really. A song that he's written. I mean, it's well documented that he had a really bad relationship with his father growing up, and he sings about it a lot in his earlier songs. And his father's recently gone through a kind of transgender change to a woman, and she's now called Miranda. And he's written a song about that and about how it's actually turned his kind of relationship with his dad on its head, really, and how it's reset his relationship with his dad. And it's it's a good song as well. It's got a nice feel to it, and it just, I guess the story in itself is just a real nice positive story, I guess, really. So have you not heard it?
No, I haven't. I'll go and listen to it now.
Give it a listen. Yeah. I mean, it's quite open in terms of like his relationship with his dad and how it's changed since he went through the change.
Okay. That does sound interesting.
Another thing, I'm listening to new Courtney Barnett record. I'm not sure if you're really too listen to her at all, but
Not too much. I know the name. I don't know too much about her.
yeah, Aussie singer, kind of electric, kind of folky, kind of Dylan-y kind of vibe.
Okay.
Yeah, a bit punky as well, I would say. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
That new record. I'm not sure it'd be your cup of tea because it's not got like many hooks.
Oh, I see. I am a man that needs hooks.
It's a bit more. It's like quite poetic and kind of spoken-y, kind of. Yeah, I'm not sure you'll be down with it.
I'm looking at her Instagram, and I always, when someone's brought to my attention like that, I find it interesting to see who else I know follows them, and straight away I can see you do. Kelly from Dolly Rots does, and Peter Munters does. So you and 2 former podcast guests follow her.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. That I'm not sure whether that's a promising sign for you or not. To be fair, but
okay,
we'll see. What about you, man?
I think the other big one recently which leads us nicely into today's interview, was Mayday Parade's album they put out at the end of November. They released it on the Friday, and then I did this interview with Derek the following Wednesday. So we talk about it quite a lot, and it was thankful that I really liked it. So I had a lot to ask him about it and stuff, and it's just what I want from a Mayday Parade album, just big hooks, as we've just established I like in songs, and I just think it does what they do very well. And it's funny because I think I put it on my Instagram story when it was released, and James, who used to co-host this podcast with me, replied to that, and he was just like, because he works at BMG or somewhere, and he was just like, yeah, that's on our label, good record that. And I was just like, what? This is like exactly what you would hate, what you're talking about. And he was just like, yeah, it's not my bag, but can't deny those hooks on those songs. It's just well written. So, I think when an album like that appeals to people outside of their lane, I think they're doing something right. So yeah, I think it's really good.
Cool. If you had to give me one song to go and listen from that record, what would it be?
That's a great question. Let me just look at the album listing now, because I've got a couple in my head.
Give me a couple if you want.
Yeah, I think the opening track, Kids of Summer, it's just because it's a straightforward kind of pop punk jam. I think you'd enjoy that. And I think track 4, If My Ghosts Don't Play, I Don't Play, is cool, because it sounds like it's going to be like this heavier sort of minor sounding song, and then it gets to the chorus and it's just changes gear, and it's just really catchy. And I think those would be a good 2.
Okay, got me homework then.
Yeah. Okay. So with that said,
there's your segue right there.
Yeah. So it's been another fun year doing this podcast, as always. We'll see you guys, the listeners, in early next year, and and this is my interview with Derek Sanders. Is it Saunders or Sanders? I think it's Sanders, the front man of Mayday Parade. And thank you to Haley at Good as Gold for hooking this up for us. All right, enjoy.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
You'll have to bear with me, because normally I have a co-host for these shows, so I'm kind of it wrong foots me a bit when I'm by myself. But the bonus of this one is I'm a bit of a fan of the old Mayday Parade, so I feel like I know a little bit to get us through and stuff. So I think
cool.
I think we should be good.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course, man. And thanks for giving us your time as well. Really, really appreciate this.
Oh, anytime. Yeah, thanks for having me.
So where are you based at the minute?
I'm at my house here in Tallahassee, Florida.
Nice. And what's home life look like for you at the minute?
Yeah, it's good. We got back from a tour, the first tour that we did, since everything kind of opened up, or relatively opened up again. We got back about a month ago, I suppose. And it's been nice. Just been hanging with family and friends, and just staying busy. A lot of house stuff to do, a lot of music to work on. It's good, man. Everything's good.
And it's funny because the way we normally do these is we'll walk through the ages a bit, talk about the band history and stuff. But I think I'm going to approach it a little bit differently with you today, because obviously we've had, at the time of recording, we had the record come out on Friday, so I want to talk about that a bunch. So we'll just dive into that in a minute, if that's okay. And then I've kind of got some general things over the last few years that I'm curious about that that I'll ask about if we have time, if that sounds good to you.
Okay, yeah, absolutely.
New record came out on Friday. Yeah, how are you feeling about that? How's it been received so far?
Yeah, I feel really good about it. It's a really exciting time, and yeah, it's our 7th album, which is kind of insane that we've been able to keep on trucking along this far. Yeah, I'm really happy with it, really proud of it. The way that I look at it is that and I feel like this has kind of developed over time, but especially the last few years and the last few albums, I try and it's a goal of mine to build upon, our sound by having some of those core Mayday Parade kind of staple sounding songs, as well as, at a certain point we felt like around our, 3rd or 4th record, kind of felt like we were starting to just repeat ourselves and do the same thing.
Sure.
And so we tried to add a little something new into each new album and experiment with some new sounds and styles and push ourselves a little outside of our comfort zone. And, and I'd like to think that we did that with this one. Songs like Bad at Love is kind of a lot more of like a modern pop kind of sounding song.
Totally.
But the track Heaven is a little more experimental with samples and synth kind of stuff. And one, I think it's important to do that. It also just makes it a lot more fun, you start to get into a routine, especially we record most of our albums with these producers, Zach Odom and Kenneth Mount, and just north of Atlanta. And you start to kind of, it's like a routine of just sort of, you know what to expect, and you know what you're going for. But when you kind of branch out into this new stuff that we haven't messed with much, it's just fun to experiment with that kind of stuff. So we try and just kind of keep it well-rounded. We like to have a little bit of the softer, more ballad kind of songs, some of the darker and heavier songs, and a little bit of everything in between. And I'm super happy with how it turned out. The response seems to be really great so far. It's always tough to say, that first, week or two, obviously, most people probably aren't gonna, say negative things about it. The response seems to be good. I guess the real test will be once we get out on the road, a few months down the line, when the record's been out for a bit, and see how well people respond to it. But so far, I think we're off to a good start.
See how much people request those songs and stuff. But yeah, man, I love listening to it. As you say, it does feel like sort of core Mayday Parade with, songs like Bad at Love, which kind of step outside the lane a little bit. But I love that it really, like, compared to Sunnyland, where, obviously Sunnyland had that core Mayday Parade thing, but I kind of feel like that moved around a bit more. But this one stays a bit more true, because like listening to it, like you get to I think it's the 5th song, something about My Ghosts or something. It's got a long title, sorry, name escapes me. Right. But like, I listen to a song like that and like it kicks in, it sounds kind of heavy, like I was like, oh, is this going to be like a minor song that could be off Black Lines or something? And then like the chorus comes in, major melody, proper, signature Mayday Parade. And I'm like, for me personally, everyone's different. I was like, that's what I want from this band. So that's why personally I've been enjoying this record a lot, man.
Cool. Yeah. Well, thank you very much. Yeah. That one in particular, I think has got a pretty strong response. People seem to like that song a lot. And I love, having those songs that just kind of rock like that, and kind of, going back to like Black Cat off of Lesson in Romantics, I think it's important for us to do those songs, and it's kind of a shame. I guess that one really is kind of the only song on the album that really kind of feels that way. So I think maybe we'll take that into the next one, and maybe add some more of those kind of heavier rock elements. And if we can get away with that.
Yeah. I love the fact that you always keep coming back to Zach and Kenneth, and like, because they have that kind of sound. You look at the other artists they've worked with and stuff, and like there's a sort of sound they have. Obviously, every record they do is differently and stuff. Remind me, what was the first record you did with them? Was it the first full length? Was that the first time you worked with them?
That's right. Yeah, it was our first full length, Lesson in Romantics, and we've done all but 2 of our full lengths with them. So 5 out of the 7. Yeah.
Yeah. So I suppose, like, was that a conscious decision? Like, I think you did the 09 record without them, and then Black Lines, like, just to kind of just go for a different approach, like always knowing that you go back to them, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. You know, it was kind of just seeing what else is out there.
Okay.
The one that we did in 2000, Anywhere But Here in 2009, that was just kind of a crazy experience overall. Kind of separate from, you know, one, I guess the producer we worked with, but also that was on Atlantic Records. And that's just a whole different experience than being on a indie label like Fearless or Rise. And so that kind of left, you know, a weird taste in our mouths. And then Black Lines we did with Mike Sapone, and that was actually an incredible experience. I love working with Mike Sapone, and out of everyone we've worked with, he's definitely the producer that I could see going back to work on, you know, whether it's such as a few songs or an EP or another full length. But it's just tough because, you know, Zach and Ken are at this point really good friends of ours, and it's just such a comfortable, it's so much fun recording music with them. It's very rare that you get stressed out or anything. And you really know what to expect, and you know it's going to be you know, a great sound and a great experience. And so it's kind of hard to stray away from that, I suppose. On
Sunnyland, because obviously they that was with them as well, but then with the likes, you did some songs with John Feldman as well, and I think there was someone else. Like, so like the songs you did with Feldman, was that like with Zach and Kenneth as well, or was that like done separately?
It was done separately. Yeah, I think there's I forget. There's 2 or 3 songs on that album that were done with Feldman. There's one song that was with Howard Benson.
Oh, that was it. Yeah,
yeah, and that was cool. Those guys are great and they're super talented. But it was also, to be honest, just a little bit stressful. Right. And you know, and then going back to Zach and Kim was like, okay, this just feels like home, you know.
Okay. So this time around, you just felt a bit more relaxed in general and more at home?
Sure, absolutely, yeah.
I mean, you even did there was the EP, wasn't there, a little while back in between? That was with them as well, I guess. So
that's right.
Was that kind of, was that gonna be part of the record, or was that always just a separate thing that you were just gonna leave and then come back and focus on a new full length?
Yeah, well, we didn't really know at the time. I guess this goes back to the end of 2019. We went into the studio and we recorded a handful of songs. We recorded the Christmas song that we put out in 2019. It's called "I'm With You." We recorded "It Is What It Is." And we actually recorded the song "I Can't Do This Anymore," which just now was released on What It Means to Fall Apart. And then early in 2020, I guess it was, you know, maybe March of 2020, we went into the studio to record a few more songs. And that's actually right when COVID really broke. It was like the first week that we were in the studio, everything just kind of fell apart, and it was just a crazy time to be there. And so then obviously, you know, we had all these plans. We had these shows booked and a whole tour booked. And while we were in the studio, it was kind of like slowly like, okay, we're going to have to cancel, you know, 1 or 2 shows and push them back. And then it was like, well, we're going to actually have to move the whole tour back by a few months. And then it was like, well, okay, now as time went on, we realized how serious this was. And once we kind of realized, you know, we're not going to be touring anytime soon, we thought, well, okay, we can still, you know, write songs and record songs. And we knew that it would be a bit before we were ready to release another full length. But because we had been kind of bouncing in and out of the studio, we thought, well, we've got a handful of these songs recorded that we feel great about. So let's go ahead and put something out. It seemed like, you know, I don't know, it just felt like that was the right move at the time, since we were so limited and there was so much that we couldn't do. We thought, well, we've got a handful of these songs, they're ready to go. Let's just put out a 3-song EP. Hopefully it, you know, makes some folks happy and helps them, you know, pass the time and get through this. So yeah, there wasn't really a plan at that point of what that music was going to be for, or, you know, what the goal was, but it just kind of all worked out.
And like, you know, I'm sure you've been asked this a million times, but like, you know, how was like 2020 for you? Obviously would have been a difficult year, as it was for everyone. But like, were there some like plus points for you? Because I assume like you obviously would have been at home with, you know, because you have kids, right? Like, so you would have spent more a lot more time with them than you would in your normal daily life, presumably.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. That was definitely kind of the silver lining, was that in the last 16 years since we started this band, it's rare that we would have been home for longer than, at the most 2 or 3 months at a time without being gone again. So to have that, we didn't play a show for nearly 2 years between the end of 2019 and this last tour that we just did. So that was really nice to just have that time at home, be with the family, work on, house stuff and house projects and home life. That was really great. It was obviously, it was a struggle for a lot of different reasons. And I also just had a lot of personal stuff kind of going on in my life. The last 7 months of my life have actually been kind of wild, kind of crazy. We don't have to get into it too much, but I'm actually going through a divorce.
Okay. I'm sorry.
And so, that's all right. I appreciate it. But yeah, so just kind of like on top of, a year and a half of craziness with COVID, and that on top, things got pretty crazy there for a bit. Okay. But it means so much. This last tour we did was so helpful to, I was just kind of, the first few months of going through that, I was really just kind of lost and
I'm sure,
just wasn't sure, what to even do. And so it was really nice to be busy and to feel like I'm, working towards something, and made me so happy to play those shows and hear people singing along, and just to feel that love and that energy was, was very healing. And now to have the new album out and to have all these plans of touring next year, and to feel like there's, kind of a hopeful future, better days ahead it means a lot.
No, I can imagine, man. That must be helpful for you right now. Speaking of touring, I know you're out with in the States early next year. You're out with Real Friends in Magnolia Park, I think, and then you're coming our way. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is this the anniversary tour of the self-titled, or is that what you just did? Or
that's right. Yeah,
set me right on that. Okay.
Yeah, we announced it all at the same time. We're doing the North America stuff, and then we do Australia, and then we're coming over to the UK and Europe.
Got it.
And all of that is the, technically the, I guess, 11 year, because that album came out in 2011, and we do a touring in 2022. But that's my favorite album of ours.
Right.
And so I'm so excited to be playing all those shows. I think that's one that means a lot to a lot of people, and that's going to be just such an insane experience. And Real Friends is on all of that, and I love those guys, and all of that touring is with great bands and great people, and it's going to be really insane. It'll be a very busy year, especially after not touring for as long as we have. Sure. It's going to be a little bit tough to hit the road, that hard. But I think next year is kind of the, let's get out there and do it and kind of make up for this lost time. And then I imagine 2023 things will sort of, even back out a bit, and we won't be going quite so full speed.
I'm excited, man. I picked up my, you guys coming, you're playing the Troc. So I'm basically when I'm setting this up, you can probably see with the watermark on my thing, like I was having technical issues with my camera. So I was a little flustered when you joined. So I didn't do the proper introduction thing, but, so I'm based in East London, and I don't know if it was last time you were here, but I've seen you a bunch of times, but last time you were co-headline with Wonder Years, and I think you're playing that same venue next year. So I just picked up my ticket for that. So
I'm excited, cool. Man. Yeah. That's a great venue. Yeah. I'm if I'm not mistaken, I think that was, the last time we were there. It's been a bit, and I know that show is, selling really well, and it's going to be all of those, I'm excited about all of it, but in particular, those bigger shows that are going to have, a few thousand people there singing along. That's going to be just insane. I look forward to that so much.
Yeah. Me too, man. Me too. Actually, on that subject, obviously you've been coming over here for years now. As I say, I've seen you a bunch. Do you have any particular favorite parts of the UK? Any particular favorite venues, favorite memories that spring to mind? Yeah,
for sure. As far as favorite memories, I feel like the first tour that we ever did over there, probably stands out to me is my favorite. It was the Give It a Name tour. There used to be the Give It a Name festival. Is that still a thing? I don't know if that's still a thing or not. But
once Slam Dunk really kind of kicked off, that kind of got overshadowed. So I feel like we haven't had that since about 07, 08, maybe something like that. It's been a while.
Well, that would have been about when we did it. I think is 2007, I believe. But it was us and 4 Year Strong and The Color Fred and Megan Dia. Nice. And it was just such a cool thing. You know, it was a rotating lineup, so nobody was headlining, nobody was opening.
Okay, cool.
We'd play, you know, first, then second, then third, then fourth, and then just bounce back around again. And those bands are all just such, you know, cool people, great musicians. It was also, you know, it was just so early on. It was our first time over there. And I just have so many wonderful memories of playing those shows. And then, of course, you know, we've been back so many times. It's always a lot of fun to come over there. I really enjoy Scotland. I like Glasgow a lot.
Yeah. Okay.
That's always a good time. And then I'd say that like the London and Manchester shows are probably the two, you know, cities where it's just kind of based on how those are going to be, you know, bigger shows, more energy, more singing along. And we played many different venues in those cities, but those are the shows I look forward to the most. Yeah,
it's funny. So I'm jumping around a little bit, but like there's little things you say here and there. And I'm like, I want to pick up on that a little bit. But you mentioned how obviously this is an anniversary for the self-titled, and that's your favorite record you've made. And it's funny, like last night I was just watching some old interviews with you on YouTube and stuff, and like there was one you did with AP to promote Sunnyland, and like at that stage you were still saying, yep, you know, the best record is the self-titled. And that seems like ever since you've made that record, something special happened. Like, does the rest of the band kind of share that view, or is there kind of different opinions on when you guys were at?
Sure. Yeah. I don't know for sure. I would guess so. I can't say that, you know, for certain. But there's something about that album and that time period. And I think a lot of it is that, you know, so our first album, A Lesson in Romantics, was, you know, we were just barely even a band at that point.
You've been a band 2 years or something then.
Right. And everything. And that's what kind of, you know, got us moving and got us a lot of momentum. And then, you know, we did Anywhere But Here, as I mentioned, on Atlantic Records. And I feel like at that point, you know, so we used to have 6 members. Jason Lancaster was in the band. Yeah. You know, he left and then we were, you know, upstream to Atlantic, and I feel like we were just pretty lost at that point. We didn't really know, you know, who we are as a band and what we wanted and what we stood for. And we were kind of pulled in all these different directions from being in just a major album contracts or a major label contracts like that. And we kind of lost a lot of control and of the band and a lot of our creative freedom. And we kind of had to basically make the album that Atlantic wanted us to make, which was a very, you know, disheartening experience. And we, you know, we literally, like, they would come in once a week to the studio, and they would have a meeting in the control room at the studio with the, you know, label executives and David Bendith, the producer, and they would like not let us in the room.
Really?
Yeah. The first time it happened, we thought they were joking, and they were like, okay, we're going to come in and listen through everything you've recorded so far. And we were like, yeah, let's do it. Sounds great. And they were like, no, it's just going to be us and David. And we like laughed, and they were like, no, we're serious. And we were like, oh, okay. And so it was, you know, it just kind of sucks to like, it's like, this is our band, you know, this is, we have to go out and play these songs and believe in these songs, and to be so kind of, you know, shut out of the creative process was just, and it's the kind of thing that I know a lot of bands have gone through, and a lot of bands don't survive that process, you know. Right. It tears a lot of bands apart. And so, you know, we learned so much from making that album. And afterwards we kind of, you know, talked and thought, listen, like, this isn't why we started this band. This isn't why we started playing music together. We need to go back to just making the music that we want to make, writing the songs that we want to write. And so that's what we did with the self-titled album. And thankfully, you know, as much as I know I'm kind of hating on Atlantic a little bit here, but they easily could have kind of kept us, you know, trapped in that. But we basically approached them and asked them, like, look, like we'd love for you guys to let us, you know, go do our own thing for this next album. And they were cool with it. And so I'm super grateful. Yeah, it really, that means a lot. And so that was, you know, self-titled album was kind of, I feel like at that point we finally, for the first time, you know, really possibly since the band had started, but certainly since Celeste Romantics, we kind of felt like we understood what we were about, and we understood, you know, what we wanted out of this. And so it was so cool to go back in, and it felt kind of like redemption in a way to make the album that we wanted to make, and for it to come out, I feel like as strong as it did, and it had a great response. And there was just something really magical about that. And I feel like with the second album, we kind of slipped a little bit, and that could have been the end of it. And for us to kind of be able to bounce back and do the self-titled and then just keep moving from there. I think that's a lot of why that album has such a special place, you know, in our hearts.
Yeah, that makes sense. But despite all of the kind of contempt, the understandable contempt you have for the experience of that second record, and like, I can see your facial expression anytime you mention it, you know, but just objectively, the music of that, like, how do you feel about that now? Do you think it's a complete miss, or do you think some of those songs are decent? Because it's been a while since I've seen you, so I can't remember if you play any of those songs live. I remember in like 2014, you might have played like, what was the song? Kids in Love, maybe. Right. But I can't, you know, just in my experience, I don't remember you guys playing much off that record sort of in recent years. So yeah, how do you feel about some of those songs? Because personally, I think some of those songs are still jams. I agree, you know, it's not you at your best, but anyway. So.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, with enough time, I think I and myself especially, and I think I can probably speak for all of us, definitely feel better about it. I think a lot of those songs are really cool. I think a lot of it is just sort of feeling like there was so much missed potential. You know, there were a lot of songs that we wrote for that album that I loved that didn't make it on the album because Atlantic wasn't on board with it. And so I think so much of it is just feeling like it could have been a lot better. Okay. I think. Yeah. But yeah, so for a while we all just like that. We were all like, that's our worst album. We kind of hated it. But I think what really helped a lot was that in 2019 we did that was the 10-year anniversary of that album. Yeah. And we didn't do a whole tour, but we played 5 shows that were you know, that album, the 10 year of that album, played the album in full, front to back.
Oh, I didn't realize. Okay.
Yeah. And we were all kind of like dreading that a bit, like, oh gosh, you know, but doing that was actually really cool. And to see, you know, the amount of people that were there, that were so enthusiastic, that were singing along to those songs, really kind of changed the way I feel about it, and maybe go, okay, you know what, like maybe this isn't as bad as I thought, or you know, wasn't as horrible as I thought. And so I have certainly felt a lot better about it since then. Absolutely.
Okay. I'll tell you as well, it's refreshing to speak to an artist when they've literally just released an album and you're saying your favorite one is, you know, one from 10 years ago. Because you know, it's, I know it's cliche, but like, you know, the way I would normally phrase a question, if someone's got a new album coming out or has just released it, I'll be like, apart from the new album, what's your favorite record you've released? So it's refreshing to see how honest you are about that, man.
For sure. Yeah. And, you know, obviously, and I really do love the new album, and I love, you know, Sunnyland is one of my favorites as well. And it's really hard to rank them, but yeah, there's just something about the self, and, you know, who knows, maybe one day, and it all kind of, you know, changes with time. I feel like when I put out a new album, I hate to say that it's my favorite until enough time has gone by that I can really, you know, think about it the right way.
Be a bit more objective about it or whatever.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. We haven't got much time here, so I'm just, you know, I mentioned I've got like some random questions. I'm just trying to get as many of them in before I let you go, if that's cool, Derek.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Firstly, I was going to say, this is funny because like watching that the AP interview I mentioned earlier, because when I thought of this question the other day, I thought, oh, that's a good question to ask him. I think that's going to be an unusual one. And then you were asked the exact same question in that interview. But the question, because that they phrased it like, if you had to show someone who didn't know Mayday Parade one song by you guys, what's it going to be? The way I was going to phrase it was like, if you really wanted to show off your band and you had to pick 3 songs, what would they be? Obviously, they don't have to be, final picks, but what would be the 3 contenders? Obviously, I've got in my head what one of them will be because it was what you said in the other one. But
right, yeah, I'm sure it was probably Oh Well, Oh Well, wasn't it?
It was Oh Well, Oh Well. Yeah.
That'd definitely be one, and probably for some of the same things I said. I think it kind of showcases a little bit of the softer side of Mayday Parade. It's got that kind of ballad intro, and then it fires in. Really energetic. I love that it doesn't go into a third chorus at the end. It's got the long kind of extended bridge outro that has a bunch of different vocal melodies going on, and that's just a lot of one of our favorite bands when we started was Taking Back Sunday. And I feel like, especially with like the dual vocal thing, that's one thing we certainly kind of tried to emulate. Another one I would say, or just one of my favorite songs in general of ours is called The Problem with the Big Picture is that it's hard to see. It's one that kind of flies under the radar a little bit. It was for the 10 year of our first EP, we went in and recorded a new song. And so it's one that I don't think it's like a fan favorite or whatever, but and that song is kind of a just reflection of, at that point, I guess we'd been a band for about 10 or 11 years at that point. And all of our time together in this band and how quickly it's gone by and how, the effort of trying to, recapture some of that magic, that was there at the beginning. And I really love that song. And I think what works really well with that, we did a video for that song, where we took a lot of this footage. We used to, tour and we'd have these flip cams and whatnot. And, so we have just a ton of this footage from going back to the very beginning, through the time and the touring and the studio and everything. And we kind of put together a compilation of all of that, video footage for the music video for that. And that really just works so nicely with that song. And that's probably my favorite music video of ours, just because it's so hard to, watch that and not feel super nostalgic. And then, gosh, I guess I'd have to say, and it's obviously this is tough, but just on the spot, I would say, Angels Die Too off the new album, off What It Means to Fall Apart. And I guess that'd just be because, the ballads, the slow, sad ballads, are such an important, piece of what we do. And they're also some of my favorite songs that we do. And that one is certainly, it's a sad song. It's an incredibly emotional song. That one's about, seeing a friend, a dear friend of mine struggling a lot, right. and just being really concerned and worried and I guess having some friends throughout the years that I've lost to suicide, being really concerned about that. And so it's obviously, a personal song, an emotional song. And that's one I'd have to throw out. Yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense, man. Dealing with some heavy subjects, particularly personal to you with losing people. Sorry. So shifting gear, this is something I always mean to ask guests, but never really do. Cause it's a funny one, man. Cause to me, I think of you're the lead singer of Mayday Parade, and Mayday Parade, a sort of huge band in our world, at least, I just want to, I'm just curious, in your day-to-day life, how often do you get recognized? Say you're going to the mall, or you're going to a bar or a cafe or whatever, with your friends or your kids or whatever. How many times out of 10 are you going to get recognized by random people? I'm just,
sure.
Just curious.
Yeah. I mean, it happens. Gosh, it's hard to say, how often, but I guess, relatively frequently, and it's always humbling and it's always nice. And I feel like, it's not to the point where it's like bothersome, you know what I mean?
Right. Okay. Okay.
Which is great. Cause I know, obviously any, high level of celebrity sounds like kind of a nightmare to have to deal with just not being able to live a normal life. And I feel like I'm able to live a normal life. And every now and then people come up and just say, and everyone's very respectful and nice and kind. No one tries to take up too much time. They usually just say a quick little hello and say, like your band, like your music, maybe they'll ask for a picture, but no, it's really nice. It's really humbling. And I guess it's a nice level of not too much, but enough that it makes you, kind of feel good. And you
got it just right, man. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like I had a big wedding not long ago, and like on that day, it was like 200 people all want a piece of you. And like my wife said to me the next week, she was like, "Oh, that must be what it's like for like super famous people every day, and it must be exhausting." So I think you've got it just right, man.
Yeah. Oh, I couldn't imagine. I would hate to have to deal with that level of, every day, all the time. It sounds like a nightmare. Yeah.
Okay. I think, we're almost out of time. So I'll just finish with a super simple question. Like what, is there any like newer artists that have impressed you recently? Anyone that you'd recommend to me or our listeners that may have passed us by? Like who's impressed you?
Yeah, absolutely. The two that come to mind, that the last few months that I've got really into, there's an artist called Soccer Mommy. She's from Nashville. I think that she is relatively big, like does pretty well. But I got into her, I guess, maybe 7 or 8 months ago. And just for a while, it was just all I listened to. She's just a great, it's kind of a folky indie kind of sound. She's got an incredible voice. She writes beautiful lyrics and beautiful songs. And, so I got really, really into that. And then we actually just did a cruise to Jamaica called the Rock Boat. There was a bunch of bands playing. We played a handful of shows on the boat, and it was an incredible experience. And there were a lot of new bands, or bands that I'd never heard of on the cruise. And the one that stood out to me the most and made the biggest impact is a band called Mom Rock.
Okay. No, I'm not familiar with that name. Okay.
Yeah, well, I think that they're, relatively new band. I don't think they've ever toured before. Mm-hmm. And they're so much fun live. They're the kind of band, and I actually haven't listened to I don't know if they even have a lot of music that they've released, honestly, but I know they've released at least some music, and I haven't listened to much of it, on record. But it's the kind of thing where when you experience it live, like that's really, it makes such a huge difference. They're just so much fun, and they have this energy, and they're funny on stage, and very, outgoing. And it's just they really get the crowd into it, and just everyone has a great time. And I feel like on the cruise, that was like, you'd hear everybody like, you got to see Mom Rock. Mom Rock is so good, and and I became pretty good friends with those folks, and we ended up hanging out, just about every day on the cruise, and got pretty close. And so I look forward to hopefully playing some shows with those folks, or doing some touring with them at some point. And that's definitely a new one to look out for. Okay,
yeah, I'll remember the name. Nice one, man. I think we're probably out of time now, Derek. I just want to thank you so much for your time. It's been lovely to meet you, at least digitally. Loving the new record, so congrats on that, man. And look forward to seeing you out this way in about half a year or whatever it is.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Of course, man. All right, enjoy the rest of your afternoon, man.
All right, you too. Take it easy.
All right, cheers, Derek. Bye.